Kakadosh Bokato Masechet Moed Katan Daf Amud Aleph. So Kakadosh, we were mentioning about yesterday to do with this concept of the general rule. Klalo shel davar is at the top of Kaf Amud Aleph, where it says Klalo shel davar. The general rule is Kol shehu mishum avel, anything which is to do with the avelut in itself. The regel is mafsiko. V'chol shehu mishum isker rabim, and anything has to do with the isker rabim, which means that the rabim are coming and they're being osek with him, which means to give him tanchumim. En a regel mafsiko, the regel is not going to be mafsik because they used to do it on the regel itself, which means on the regel itself they used to come and give him tanchumim. So therefore, to do with the tanchumim, if he did 2 days before and he has to complete another 5 days later, the other 5 days later he has to do the 5 days, but he doesn't have to do the 5 days. The people have to come to him to say, right, to give him the tanchumim because he already did it on the moed. Okay, and this is where we left off right yesterday. It says over here in the Gemara, Kevaro shlosha yamim besof regel, moneh shiva achar regel. So the person is going to come and he's going to bury a close person to him, right? One of his close relatives. 3 days, right? At the end of the regel. So therefore he's going to count all the avelut after the regel. Arba'a yamim rishonim, the first 4 days, right? With the shiv'ah, rabim mitaskim bo. People are going to be mitaskim with him. Shosha yamim achronim, and rabim mitaskim bo. Shekvar nitasku bo b'regel. So the last few days they don't mitaskim bo because they already did it to the regel. The exact same yesod what we mentioned above, which means that since during the regel they're going to come and they're going to tell him sorry and they're going to feel bad for him. So for those days count for tanchumim. So if it was 3 days during the regel, you're right. You could only start the shiva yamim after the regel. But since the first 3 days, they were already mitaskimbo, the rabbin, which means that they were already telling him that they feel sorry and that this and that. So therefore, when it comes to 7 days later, it's only the first 4 days that they have to be mitaskimbo. The last 3 days, they already completed it during the regel, right? He has to sit shiva, but there's no concept of the rabbin mitaskimimo. That's okay. That's what it says. So says the Gemara.
So it's the 4th day. What is that symbol?
Yeah. Okay. The regel olelo. The regel is going to be olelo liminyan for the shloshim. Okay. My lava seifa, is that not going on the seifa? That means in the case where the kvura was in the regel itself, don't we say that the regel is going to be olelo liminyan shloshim? So says the Gemara, lo, it's not. It's going to be on the reisha. What does it mean on the reisha? On the reisha, where it says if somebody is going to bury his deceased 2 days before the regel, so then it's pashut that the regel is going to olelo limyan shloshim because the velut already started from beforehand. Okay, 8b. So he's going to ask the following question: Haregel olelo limyan shloshim keitzad. What is the case that the regel is going to be olelo limyan shloshim? What's the case? So it says kivaro betchilat regel. If he buried him on the first day of the regel, on the first day, moneh shiva achar regel, you're going to count 7 days after the regel. We already said that his melacha could be done through other people. And his servants can do his work inside of his house. Right? And people do not deal with him to give him consolement because they already consoled him. Right? The regel olelo, and the regel is going to count for the shloshim. So it comes out that here it says, mefurash, that the regel is going to count for minyan shloshim, even in a case where he was buried by regel at small. And not like Rabba. Rabba said before that it was only if he was buried before the regel. Here we're saying that even if he was buried on the regel is going to be olelo leminyan shloshim. So says the Gemara, you're right. Tiyufta. This is a good refutation in Achanami, and therefore lemaskana, yemei regel count for the shloshim, even if he was going to be buried on the regel itself.
What kind of avodah?
Any avodah that he does. Any avodah. His avodah could be done through other people.
They could do also during the Chol HaMoed.
Yeah. Okay. Kiata Ravin. Yeah. Kiata Ravin. When Ravin came, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu kevaro baregel, even if he buried him during the regel, v'chen orili Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Pedat berei. So too that was the psak of Rabbi Lazar to Rabbi Pedat's son. Afilu kevaro baregel, even if he buried him during the regel. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. If he did the kfiyat hamita, right? The kfiyat hamita we're going to see above. We learned it above in Tedvav Amud Aleph. That was bending over all the beds, right? Turning them over. So he says 3 days before the regel, so therefore he doesn't have to do it after the regel. These laws are Eliezer. Chachamim say even one day and even sha'achat, right? Because remember, if the regel is going to be vatel shiv'ah, we learned in the Mishnah was 3 days. But here we just said even yom echad and even sha'achat. That's what we said, even for 1 hour before. And even if 1 hour before the regel. Exactly. We Yoshev Shiva Sha'a. Enough. No, Fiyat Amita is they used to turn around the beds. Right? What? That was a part of Avelut. Part of Avelut. Okay? So now it says some people they sleep on the floor. Yes. There's also minhag, the same minhag on Tisha B'Av. Minhag to sleep on the floor.
And they put some stones also.
Yeah. Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, says Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, hen divrei Bet Shammai. These are the words of Bet Shammai. And hen divrei Bet Hillel. These are the words of Bet Hillel. Shebet Shammai omrim, but Bet Shammai says shlosha yamim. Ubet Hillel omrim afilu yom echad, and even sha'achat. And that's how we pass it. Even yom echad. That means we're going like Bet Hillel. So that means even sha'achat, it's already enough. Many times, by the way, they do that purposely. Sometimes they realize that, for example, right, there's an avelut that's going to happen to someone. And it's a very difficult avelut, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes they'll come and they'll push it quickly, so that way they're able to sit down for a minute, for an hour. The second they sit down, that's it. It's counted as a day. So they save a day. So many times they'll push it to go quicker.
Push the burial?
Yeah, that means they'll try to do it as quickly as it's right by the shkia.
They push it
No, because sometimes it's right by the shkia. And sometimes it's right by the shkia, and then they're going to be buried after the shkia. So many times they'll try to do it before the shkia in order that they have time to sit down. No. They have to do the kvura. So many times they'll push the kvura in order to do it quicker. In order. Ravuna says Ravuna Rabbi Chia Baraba, name Rabbi Chia Baraba, and Rabbi Yochanan, name Rabbi Yochanan. And some people say it was they told them Rabbi Yochanan to Rabbi Chia Baraba Ravuna. Afilu yom echad, afilu sha'achat. Rava Amar Alacha Ketada Didan Damar Shlosha. He says even if it's going to be 1 day or 1 moment, right? Sha'achat. Okay, it's going to be
is a moment or is an hour?
So we're going to see, because actually that's already really written here. It just says a filu sha'achat. They speak about sha'achat. The question is halacha l'maaseh sha'achat mamash sha'achat, or is it even just a moment that they did a few minutes before? Rava comes and he says halacha is ketana didan damar shlosha. So the halacha is like our Tana of the Mishnah that he says 3 days, right? Which is like also Bet Shammai. So Ravina ikla lesura de prat amal le Rav Chaviva le Ravina hilchatamai. What's halacha? Amal le afilu yom echad afilu sha'achat. Even yom echad and even sha'achat. V'ken naktu kol aposkim. Rif, Rosh, Rambam, Tur, Shulchan Aruch. Everybody said that. Means the sha'achat for sure. The question is it mamash dafka sha'a or love dafka sha'a? That's already another question in the Acharonim. But for sure, we paskin halacha l'maaseh even sha'achat before the regel is going to be batel the regel. Yeah? You look
You took two.
So it says over here they were sitting in Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, Akila in the prosdor of the Knisa to the house of Rabbi Yitzchak ben Lazar. Nafak minta benayhu, right? And it came out between them. Minayin la velut shiva. How do we know the bichlal la velut is 7 days? So he says the Tibas. It says v'afachti chag lechem level. I'm going to turn over their chag into an evel. Just like chag. What is chag? Chag of Pesach Sukkot is shiva yamim. So to avelut is going to be shiva yamim. He said v'afachti chag lechem. The chag I'm going to turn it into avelut. So the chag is 7 days. So therefore avelut is going to be 7 days. So says the Gemara v'hima atzeret dechad yom. Maybe it's Shavuot. And Shavuot is 1 day, right? And so the Gemara. He needs it for the Shakish. I'm going to Shakish Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. But says the Shakish Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. Minayin l'shemua rechoka. She'eino nogeh yom echad. How do we know shemua rechoka? This is what I think Dr. John Paul spoke about the other day. You remember shemua rechoka? Shemua rechoka means that a person didn't hear about the death until after 30 days. And I already told you that when a person is sick, for example, or there was a woman here in the community that she was very elderly and her husband passed away, they purposely will not tell her until after the 30 days in order that even if there is dina velut, it's already shemua rechoka. So the velut is 1 day, it's not 7 days. So the question is, how do we know such a concept that the shemua rechoka is 1 day and not 7 days? So it says, I turned their chag into an evel. And we found that there's a chag, that it is 1 day. What's the chag 1 day? Shavuot. So we need Shavuot of 1 day to teach you avelut of 1 day, Which avelut is 1 day? Shemua rechoka. If a person only found out 30 days later about the deceased, 1 day of avelut. It's called shemua rechoka. Okay?
It's 30, it's one.
So Mordechai just said that why is a woman called Rabbanit? Because she says Rabbanit. Right? What does that mean? That she was the one that built the rabbi. Chazak u'baruch. Let's continue. So now says the Gemara, Yativ Rav Chia bar Abba Rabbi Yami Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Kila. So he said, we just did that. So Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita. Okay? Shemua Krova, Shiva u'Shloshim. So that means Shemua Krova. If it's within the 30 days, we have the Shiva and the Shloshim. Shemua Rechoka, it's going to be far away, which means after the 30 days, it's only going to be 1 day. Krova is betoch HaShoshim, Rechoka is le'achar HaShoshim. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Chachamim omerim, Chachamim say, Achat Shemua Krova, Achat Shemua Rechoka, Noheget Shiva Shoshim. No, you always have Shiva Shoshim. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Makom She'ata Motzi Yachiv Mekel V'Rabim Machminim Halacha Rabim. Do you know that whenever you have a Yachiv Rabim, Halacha Kerabim. Here you have Rabbi Akiva, that he was Mekel. Here you have the Chachamim, which are the Rabim, they're Machmirim. Halacha Kerabim. Chutz mizo, except for this case. Why? The Amar Shmuel was, we have a general rule. Shmuel says, we always go, right, which is actually very interesting, because even though there are certain dinim of Avelu which are Doraita, right, especially according to some Rishonim, here there's a Chidush din that to do with the Avelut, right, we always go Lakel. Now, Chanina Atya, Le Shemua Davua Mi Bechozai. So Rav Chanina, it came to him as Shemua Rechoka on the death of his father in Bechozai. Ata lekamed el chasta. So he came from the chasta. Malay, he told him Shemua Rechoka. It's only Shemua Rechoka. Rav Natim Barami Ata le Shemua Dimye Bechozai. His mother passed away in Bechozai. Ata lekamed el came to Malay. Are Amru Shemua Rechoka. No Yom Echad. So here the chidush is that even for a parent, it's Yom Echad. Meaning, I could understand that if it's somebody else, meaning another of the 7 relatives, it's okay, Yom Echad, Yom Echad. Here, it's even, for the first case with the father, second case with the mother, and it's still Yom Echad. Why? Shemua Rechoka, Yom Echad. 8 ways, so we're going... 8 ways, so we're going to ask the following question. What do you mean one of these words? B'chamisha, in the 5, metemitzah. Aval alvi ve'imo, shiva u'shloshim. So he says, on the father and the mother, you always have 7 and 30. So says the Gemara, Malay Yechidahi, but it's not true. Because that's like the Shitat Yechidah, but we don't pass that. Because Rabbi Akiva himself did not differentiate between the father and the mother, and therefore, and that's why by the stories that we just mentioned. That's why even by the father and the mother, it's going to be the same halakha that we only do, right, one day, and we don't do Shiva or Shloshim. The Tanya, we learned in the Braita, it happened that Rabbi Tzadok, right, the father passed away in Ginzak, and they only told him after 3 years. He told him, do 7 and Shoshim. But we don't actually pass like that. Right? Another one, he did also Shiva Shoshim, and it was after 30 days. So says him, is it so? He says Rav was the Ben Achiv, was the nephew. Right? And it was Ben Achoto of Rebbe Chia. Okay? Kisali Klata, when he went over there, he says, Abba Kayam. He says, what is his father Kayam? Kafa Mubet. Yeah? So he didn't want to tell him, Mefurash, that the father passed away. So Amarle, he says, Ima Kayemet. Right? So he says, right, is the mother alive? Basically, he went and he told him, instead of saying that the father was not alive, because that was his brother. So he didn't want to tell him that his brother died. Right? Again, this is the basically, right, what are we talking about? We're talking about that it was the nephew. So the nephew comes and the uncle asks him, right, is your father alive? He's talking about his own brother. So he didn't want to say that the father died. So what did he say? He says, you should ask, Ima Kayemet, is the mother alive? So he went and he said, okay, fine. Ima Kayemet? So he says, Amalei, Abba Kayam? He says, what, is the father alive? So the guy already realized, 1 second. I just asked about the father and he told me to ask about the mother. I asked about the mother, and now he told me, ask about the father. I'm not, you understand? Meaning, no, שניהם נפטרו. אז בגלל זה, הבן אדם הוא כבר הבין, הוא בא אליו, כאילו, תגיד על האמא. So he says, על האמא, לא, אבל תשאל על האבא. Because he already realized that both of them passed away. So אמר לי לשמש, so he told the shamash, חלוץ לי מן עליי, take off his shoes, because it was his brother and his sister. והולך אחריי כלי, לבית המנחץ. He's going to take the kelim to the Bet HaMirchatz. Okay, fine. Next, Shema mina tzlat. So we learn from here 3 different halachot. Shema mina avel asub is nilat sandal. We learn from here that he told him he had to take off his shoes. So for avel is asub is nilat sandal, even for a shemua rechoka. Number 2, Shema mina shemua rechoka is only yom echad. Okay, number 3, Shema mina mitzat yom kekulo. A little bit of the day is already enough. Why? Right? Because it says that even if it's going to be a small amount, it's going to be the entire thing. Because since he went and he said that it's only a zman kolshu, so then why did he have to do shiva u'shloshim al beno? Right? It's brought down. So therefore he holds that mitzat yom kekulo is already going to be enough. The Gemara answers Rav Chia lechud v'Rav Achia lechud. There were 2 different people, Rav Chia and Rav Achia. So therefore that's why since there was 2 different people, right, there were 2 different halachot. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, says Yossi bar Avin, Shama shemua kirova baregel. What happens if a person heard shemua kirova during the regel? Ulmotzea regel, but now motzea regel, it becomes rechoka. It's the past 30 days. So they told him during the regel, a family member passed away.
That's
now
the 30 days.
That's within the 30 days. But now motzea regel, when he's going to start, it becomes rechoka. Olelo veno noegel yom echad. It counts for him, and therefore he's only going to do 1 day. So Tani Rabbi Yada bar de bin Kisareh.
30 days. I mean, we're talking about
Shiva.
Okay.
There's the Gemara. Tani Rav Ada de bin Kisareh kamed Rav Yochanan. Shama shemua krova b'Shabbat. Motzei Shabbat na'aseh rechoka. Eno noegel yom echad. The same halacha would apply if he found out about it on Shabbat, and then on Motzei Shabbat became shemua rechoka. That means they basically told him on the day 29th, right? And then all of a sudden Motzei Shabbat is the day 30th. So it's already after 30. So he says, Eno noegel yom echad. It's only going to be yom echad. Korea or no Korea? Does he have to do kriya or not? Meaning, we already know that a person has to do kriya. And by the way, you should know the majority of people do not know hilchot kriya. Okay? When I say the majority of people, Korea or no Korea, right? He says he comes, he says this. Korea or no Korea? Does he does kriya or not when he hears the shemua rechoka? Rabbi Mani says no Korea, he doesn't do kriya. Rabbi Chanina Amar Korea. Rabbi Chanina says he does do kriya. Amale Rabbi Meani Rabbi Chanina says Rabbi Mani to Rabbi Chanina, Bishma le'dida mina eno Korea. It's good according to me that I'm going to say eno Korea. Hainu delo ika velut shiva. That's why I say that there's not going to be a velut of shiva ela lididach. But according to you, that you do say Korea, kriya belo shiva mika. Is there such a thing as kriya belo shiva? Meaning, how could you do kriya and there's not going to be shiva v'yimei avelut? According to him, that he does the shiva yimei avelut even for a shemua rechoka. So then, okay, you have a question: do you do kriya or not? But if you do not do shiva yemei avelut and you're only doing yom echad, is there such a thing that you could do kriya? There's not shiva yemei avelut. That's what he's asking. Says the Gemara, velo. Fatani, we did it. You could. Why? Isi avu ad Rabbi Zera. Isi the father of Rabbi Zera. And some people say it was achu ad Rabbi Zera, the brother of Rabbi Zera. Kamed Rabbi Zera in front of Rabbi Zera. Mi she'en lo chaluk likroa. What happens if a person does not have a chaluk to tear? So he's damen lo betoch shiva and it comes during the shiva. Korea leachar shiva or no Korea? Does he do the kriya afterwards or not? Ane Rabbi Zera batres. Rabbi Zera answered. One of these words, b'chamisha mete mitzvah, on the 5 of the 7 which are written in the Torah, which is basically a son and daughter, a brother and a sister and a wife. Aval al aviv ve'imo korea ve'olech. On a father and a mother, he's going to do it all the time. Korea ve'olech. He just does it. He just continues going. Korea ve'olech. Kitanya hi lichvod aviv ve'imo. He says no, that's because of the kavod of the aviv ve'imo. It's not that a person really has to do it after Shiva. It's something he got a din of the kriya. It's just because of the kavod of the father and the mother, so he does it afterwards. Remember that according to the Zohar Kadosh, right, the main mitzvah of chibud avayim starts after death, not before. After. Wow. Yeah, it's a powerful after death. That's what. Yeah. לכבד, שהם צריכים להגיד, הריני כפרה משכבם, וכל הדברים האלה, all these halachot. There's a lot of halachot. According to Zohar Kadosh. Yeah. Okay. Next. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. Kol ha'amur b'parashat kohanim, everything which is written in parashat kohanim, shekohen mitamel alein, that a kohen can become tameh for them. Are you listening, kohen? Avel mitabel alein. So therefore, the avel could also be mitabel alein. Elu, and these are the people: Ishto, his wife, aviv ve'imo, the father and the mother, achiv achoto, right, the brother and the sister, which is a betula me'aviv, not a sister that is married. Remember that, yeah? Because it says v'lachoto betula. Okay. Beno ubito, the son and the daughter. They added that also the brother and the sister from the sister, which is again a betula, but not from the mother. Because before we were always talking about from the father. And they also added on the married sister, ben me'aviv ben me'imo. So therefore they added on the married sister. That means technically speaking, to do with the kohen, it was only achoto betula. But then they added on every type of achot, even if she's going to be married. And just like he's going to be mitabel alehem, kacha mitabel al shniim shelem. So they're going to be mitabel on the shniim of theirs. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, these words of Rabbi Akiva. Shubam Lazar and Shubam Lazar says, "Eno mitabel al beno ben beno ve'al aviv aviv." Says no. The only times that he's going to be mitabel is only on a grandchild or a grandfather, meaning that you're going straight up the lineage or straight down, not in the shniim. Because remember, shniim means that, for example, a nephew. Because if the sister or the brother is sitting shiva, so it means the shniim means that he would also sit shiva for them. But he says no, it's only going up and down the lineage. So for a grandfather or a grandchild, Chachamim say no. Kol shemitabel alav mitabel imo. Anybody that one of the krovim they're going to be mitabel alav midarga rishona, he's going to be mitabel imo. So he's going to be obligated to do also avelut. Chachamim ainu tanakama. So says the Gemara, but then that's a tanakama. Then the exact same shita. That means they would do the avelut even on the shneim. So he says no. Ikabenayu imo babayit. It has to be with him in the house. Meaning, according to Rabbi Akiva, he holds that as long as you always have to be mitabel even on the shneim. But according to Chachamim, it's only if they're there with it. Then you have to be mitabel al shneim. But if not, no. Just like Rabbi told the son, so to Ravuna told to Rabbi his son, be'apa, right, in front of his wife, nehoga veluta. You have to be noega velut. That means basically the wife became an avela. She lost, whether it's a father or a mother. So now, if the wife is doing avelut, in front of her, he also has to do avelut. Velo apa, but not in front of her, lo tinoga veluta. He doesn't have to do avelut. Okay, a story to do with this. Mor ukva shachiv lebar chamua. So Mor ukva, it passed away a brother-in-law, which is basically the son of the father-in-law. Bar chamua, the son of the father-in-law. Son of father-in-law. Okay. Savar lemeitavale. Okay. So he says Savar lemeitavale shiva ushoshim. So he wanted to sit on him shiva ushoshim. Al Ravuna legabes. Ravuna came to Mashkech and he found him. Amale, he says to the naita bait levechal. He says, what? You want to eat food of the avelut? Meaning what? You know, the avelut food was sometimes it was tasty. And said they had roskas,
they used to have a lot of food.
He says, what? You want to eat avelut food? Like, what are you doing? You understand? So he said, Lo amru lichvod ishto, ela al chami v'chamoto. They only said on kavod ishto is also only on the chami v'chamoto. Meaning the only avelut that they would have to do is for the father-in-law and mother-in-law, but not for any other person of the wife. Meaning if the wife lost, whether it's a brother or a sister or whatever, no. It's only on the father and the mother of the wife. That a person, because of the kavod chami v'chamoto, person's chayav lechabed chami v'chamoto.
Sorry.
Okay. So he says, yeah. The Tanya, as we learned to the right, the person has passed away, the chami v'chamoto. So he says over here, you cannot come and you cannot force his wife to start putting on makeup. He has to turn around the bed and do with her avilut. The same halacha applies to her. If his father or mother passed away, she's not allowed to come and start putting on makeup. There was another bright that taught of Mishamnu. They said, she could still do all the other things that a nida does to her husband, like it does not do to her husband, which means she could pour him wine, or she could set his bed, or to wash his hands, face, and feet. So kashinada, it's a stira. But rather it's coming to teach you. Kan chami v'chamoto, kam shakrovim. One is chami v'chamoto, one of them is shakrovim, which means to do with the chami v'chamoto, right? A person has to do mamash everything just like his wife. But to do with everybody else, he doesn't have to shemamina. That's what we learn. That means he has to pretend the avelut just like his wife is doing avelut. That's what he said. He has to also do that. Well, it's a pretend because he's not actually doing mamash avelut, but he has to do the yes. Tanya and Yach, we also learned to the right. Right? Lo amru, they didn't say lichvod ishto lechamim v'chamoto bilvad. It's only going to be chamim v'chamoto bilvad. Ameimar shachav lebarbere. So Ameimar passed away, the barbere, which is his grandson. Kara ilave, so he did kriya on him. Atabere, his son came. Kara be'apeh, he did it in front of him. Idkar, he remembered the miushav kara, that he did it sitting down. This is the halacha that I mentioned before. Kam ve'kara me'umad. He got up and he did it standing up. Because remember, kriya has to be done standing up. That means he did the kriya sitting down. And kriya sitting down does not help. So what did he have to do? He got up and he had to do it standing up. Amale Ravashi Lamimar says, how do you know you have to do it standing up? He got up and he tore it. And we continue with Hashem
from Eyo.